Hi, my name is Marcus, and this is Servant King. Today is February the 28th, 2021, and as always, I need to say hello. So, hello everybody. I see somebody in the chat typed in, it's the 27th. Maybe in Australia it's the 28th. What did I say? Did I say the 20th? No, today's February 27th, 2021. This is Servant King. So here's the first Transform program. It's 33 minutes long, and after you watch it, then we'll have a short discussion about the actual program. Hi, my name is Marcus, and this is Servant King. This is the first program in a series which I call Transform Programs. This first Transform program will be the most important program of the whole series. Without it, you will have no hope of transforming your mind. This program is called A Mindless Mind. We were all born with a mindless mind. When you were born, you knew nothing. You only had the ability to do a few innate things. Innate means present at birth, but not necessarily hereditary. Acquired during fetal development. So you could do things like urinating, defecating, sucking a teat, screaming. You cannot see properly yet. You can't hold anything in your hands. And your first smile is probably just gas. Now, as you start to grow and develop, your mind will develop through your senses. You start to see things, you taste things, don't like it, you pull a face, you feel things, ouch, that hurts, you hear things, and you start to learn a language. Your mind will develop with all the things you are exposed to. And what you are exposed to, you have no say in it. Just like your identity. Just like your identity. You did not ask to be born or who you are born of. You have no say in your identity. You learn things from your parents, your brothers and sisters, and probably TV. Now it's time to go to school, and the state takes over. It's the law. Everybody has to be educated. These are called truancy laws. Now you will begin to be programmed the same as everyone else. And it's for your own good. And we all believe that everything we learn is for our own good. But what's the difference between belief and knowledge? See, we think we know a lot of things. But in actual fact, is it possible that we just believe things, but they're not even true? Knowledge is something you know. You've seen it, or you've heard it, or you've tasted it, or you felt it, or maybe you smelt it. So knowledge comes from your senses. Yeah, and belief is always the absence of knowledge. If you know something, you heard it, you smelt it, you touched it, you don't say, I believe that. You say, I know that. I saw that. So belief is based on the credibility of the testator. Somebody tells you something, and you trust them. You find it credible. So you believe them. And then what we do, especially based on our education and news media and so forth, we go away and we tell somebody else, did you know such and such? And yet it's just a belief. And now it becomes their knowledge, and this is how it gets passed on. Now, your parents love you, so you believe everything they tell you. And, of course, they were told things that they believe. Your friends, your pastor, your minister, your teacher, your government representative, and, of course, CNN, the most trusted name in news. People used to believe everything they heard on the radio or read in the newspaper. It was like always gospel truth. And you will take what you believe and make it your knowledge. Did you in school ever say to your teacher, prove that to me? You were taught so many things, but did you ever challenge the teacher and say, prove that to me? No. Instead, you were tested on what you were forced to learn, and then graded, and then you felt great because, oh, look how smart I am. I got an A or a B on this test, or 99% or whatever. But it's a fact that about 99% of everything you think you know is just a belief, not knowledge at all. I have come to know that people do not even know why they believe what they believe. It's almost a favorite saying of mine now. What you know and believe will depend on where you were born and to who you were born. If you were raised in the Western world, you will know and believe differently from someone born in China or a Muslim country. Were you raised in a lovely, stable family that provides for you? Or were you born to a crack-addicted mother prostitute with no father present in the inner decay of a USA city? You see, you have no chance. You have no say. So as you grow, your mind will develop along with your body until you are full grown. Not only does your body stop growing at a certain point, but your mind does also. Sure, you can learn more things as you age, but what is called the formative years is finished. Many people believe they can change what they think, but it's extremely difficult and usually does not happen. Just as you can not undo a period of growth, you cannot undo a period of mental growth. If you were fed improperly from age 5 to age 7 and developed a bad heart, that time is past. It's finished. Being fed poorly or insufficiently does not stop your growth. You will continue to grow. Same with your mind. It will continue to develop. But if you were fed improperly, you can't go back in time and correct this bad heart. This is why it's very important to feed children properly, or any animal while it's growing properly. So, you will grow and your mind will develop. Now God says in Proverbs 22:6, raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. See, he knows about our minds. And the Pope says, Catholic Pope said, give me a child until he is 7 and he will be a Catholic for life. You see, we all believe we live in the best country. We believe you're raised in this religion. We believe so many things. But are these things true? Are these things good for us? Now we will learn why this first transformed program. Why this is the first transformed program. I've told you repeatedly, and John has told you, that it will take some time to be transformed. Why? Because the only thing stopping you from learning and stopping you from seeing things, which I call concepts, is the overload of things that are already programmed in your mind. And the hurdle you must overcome is vanity. Now, the reason I tell you this is because you must become aware of what you're up against and accept it as reality. If you do not, you have no chance of being transformed. Now, up till date, we've done a few member calls, and this is a little bit of a scolding. Nobody's asked me any questions about what we actually looked at. You're going right past all that, wanting to ask me what you want to know. How would you do this? How would you do that? And I keep telling you, forget it. You have to listen to what I'm telling you. This is called a transformation of the mind. You have to start to think differently. You have to be able to grasp concepts. Right now, every one of you is sitting there because you're adults, you're whatever sort of age. I know lots of stuff. What do you think about this? You have no idea that you're keeping yourself locked into this system, your program, your indoctrination. You just can't get out of it. And I told you that when you actually are able to start doing it and start to see new concepts and start thinking in a different way, you'll start to feel a frustration and an irritableness in your mind. Right? Not physically, but just in your mind. That's when the transformation is occurring. Now, I will show and prove all of this to you using the art of falconry. As you're aware, I'm a falconer. I'm maybe one of the best in the world at it. And falconry is hunting with trained birds of prey. For centuries, man took birds from the wild to train and hunt with them. Today, many are bred in captivity, but the principle remains the same. So, I'm going to give you 3 terms here. Okay, this applies to people too, and dogs and all sorts of animals. The 3 terms are eyas, passage, and haggard. Okay? Now, a bird grows very quickly compared to man. It does not take years, but merely days or weeks. An eagle is full grown at 12 weeks. A domestic chicken, about 6 weeks from the time it hatches out. So, there's a bald eagle, or a bald eagle egg, about the size of your fist, a little bit smaller, just hatching out. 12 weeks later, that bird there has feet the size of my hand and an 8-foot wingspan. That's what occurred in 8 weeks. As that bird physically grew, it also mentally grew. Now here is a picture of innate behavior. These are little, I don't know, maybe 4 days old, 3-4 days old, little falcons. I don't know if they're land or falcons or prairie falcons, can't really tell when they're that age. They just have a little bit down on them. As the parents come back to the nest, as I approach them, they just sit up straight like this, open their mouth, so you can have food put in it. They all do that. That's an innate behavior. You didn't need to teach them. So, what is an eyas, passage, or haggard bird? And why is that important in the art of falconry? Well, those 3 terms have to do with the age of the bird when it started its relationship or exposure to man. So it's not the age of the bird. Don't get confused. It's the age of this bird when it started its relationship or was exposed to man. Here's a drawing. So here we have a timeline, and let's say you went out to a nest. This is before man was breeding birds of prey in captivity, and you took a little falcon or hawk out of the nest that was 5 days old. It'd be like these little falcons' innate behavior, and as it grows, day by day, week by week, it sees you, it hears you, it has no fear of you, it thinks of you as its mummy. You're the one that's providing the food, and it will actually, when you approach it, it will scream to you for food. Okay? As the baby bird grows in the nest, it becomes full grown, let's say at the average hawk or falcon, about 8 weeks old. So now if you went to a nest in the wild and there was a bird standing in the nest but couldn't fly yet, but it looks like it's basically full grown, that would be right about here somewhere. And we would still call that an eyas. But when you approach that nest, that bird is basically full grown. It'll put its wings out from fear. It'll scamper back in the corner. It might even dive out of the nest. It knows that it's a bird. It's not scared of its parents when it comes back to the nest, but it's scared of you. Okay? Now, as soon as the bird leaves the nest and it can fly, now we have to trap the bird if we want to get it for the art of falconry to train it. So the second type of bird was called a passage bird. So if you took a bird from the nest, whether it was 1 day old or almost full grown, as long as you took it from the nest, it was called an eyas. But a 2-day-old bird is not the same as a 64-year-old bird, a 64-day-old bird, okay? But for intensive purposes, we call that an eyas so that we understand this bird will probably be tamer. It won't be scared of man. So let's say the bird is out of the nest for 2 or 3 weeks, flying around, starting to try to hunt on its own. Parents are still feeding it. We would call that a passage bird. And the reason it's called a passage bird is traditional falconry is young birds of prey were trapped while they were on passage from the summer grounds to the winter grounds. In other words, when they were on migration. There's famous places in Europe and Asia where they have routes for migration. And if a guy went out to trap falcons or hawks, he was looking for a passage bird. So he was looking for a bird that was probably 1, 2, or 3 months out of its nest. So this bird had some flying experience. It had some hunting experience on its own. It was scared of man. But once it's past 1 year old, we called it a haggart. Now you've probably heard the word haggart before. You say someone that looks old and tired. Oh, he looks awfully haggart to me. Haggart means old and tired, set in its ways. So if I trapped a 3-year-old falcon or hawk, I usually could tell from the plumage. And I'd say, well, I don't want this kind of hawk or falcon for training. Because this bird is a little bit older, it's more scared of me, its hunger might not overcome its fear, it might even starve to death rather than taking some food from my gauntlet. Might be a really good hunting bird because it has a lot of life experiences hunting things on its own. But I want a bird that I can train easier and yet is still scared of me. So I'm going for a passage bird. I would release that bird and then keep a passage bird. And of course, once they're in adult plumage, whether it's 3 years old or 14 years old, you really have no way of telling whether the bird's 2 years old, 4 years old, or 14 years old. But if you trapped a 14-year-old bird, boy, that bird's pretty old and tired, set in its ways. And it's the exact same thing with us, okay? So as an animal physically grows, it also mentally grows. So I've got written here, an eyas has no fear of man, but it knows nothing about the wild. See, the young birds of prey we breed in captivity, even though I breed a lot of them, or I used to, in sealed chambers where I'd look at them through mirrors, they'd never seen people until they were actually full grown in captivity. So they were wild to man. That's the way I prefer them when I start to train them. But when I took this young hawk or falcon out and started to train it to come to me, first on a thin line called a creance, and now I'm going to let it fly free to a tree. When that young hawk or falcon flew over to a tree, you know what it did? It would land on the leaves. Yeah, this big hawk or falcon would fly over to a tree, land on the leaves, grab it, and hang upside down, as awkward as could be. But a passage bird, no. This bird was raised in its nest. And one day, when it gets a little bit bigger and it's almost full grown, he stands there flapping his wings. He's tearing the food apart on his own. The parents are just bringing it back to him. He jumps out onto a branch and jumps back into his nest. Now he jumps to a couple more branches, back into his nest. Next day he flies over to another tree, back into his nest. Everything is a gradual process of learning. So he learned how to fly. Now he starts to fly around further. He's chasing leaves falling off trees. He's chasing butterflies. He's chasing barn swallows. He can't catch any of them. Parents are still feeding him. Slowly but surely, he starts to develop his own hunting skills and he starts to catch things and eat on his own. So if I had a passage bird and I brought it into captivity, it's going to be wilder. It's going to be a little more set in its ways. But it's going to have nicer manners. It's not going to scream at me and try to grab me like I'm its mother for food. And then the first time I let it fly free, after so many days of training, it flies right past the leaves and knows how to land on a branch. So you see, everything is a learned behavior. And a little aside, so when you see these people taking in injured animals and raising them in captivity and then releasing them into the wild, you might as well just put them in a box underneath the deck and let them starve to death, because they really have zero chance of surviving. Everything is a gradual process in learning, okay? So the passage bird's not set in its ways, knows how to fly, it's probably flown in the wind already, it knows how to land in trees, on branches, maybe it's already caught some food on its own. The haggard, great hunting bird. That bird, 14 years old, has been probably catching something to eat every day of its life, 365 days a year for 14 years. This bird has some good hunting skills. But is it good for falconry, for me to train to hunt with? It's old and tired, set in its ways. Do you think I can ever take this haggard, or even that passage bird, but especially a haggard over here, and have it nice and tame sitting on my gauntlet, nice and tame as could be, like an eyas? Impossible. What has developed in their mind will never, ever, ever change. And this is something you have to realize about yourself too. Okay? So the eyas will never develop a fear of man. I could run over to it every day and shake it, boo boo, scare it. It will never get scared of me. I'm its mother. It was raised with me. So I'm actually altering the bird's natural mind. Okay? If you release an eyas into the wild, it doesn't know how to fly, it doesn't know how to land, doesn't know how to eat. So, these birds will never change what they are. When you learn a new way of life, you too will say, well, what do I do now? How would I do this, or how would I do that? These are the questions I'm getting from you. This is normal. You don't know any other way of life. You think you do. You think you read the scripture, I know something about God. You don't know anything yet. I'm just telling you. Sounds really egotistical, but you have to become aware of this for yourself. You have to accept it. If you don't accept it, you're never going to change. You're never going to transform your mind. And that's why I said earlier, even the things that I've shown you, even though they're out of order, and we've touched on a lot of things already through these 2 programs called Likeness and then these 3 jurisdiction videos, you're not asking me any questions about that stuff. You're just going, yeah, I get it. You haven't a clue yet. You have no idea of the concepts I've already explained to you in those things. And you need to ferret them out in detail till you can actually see it and grasp it, so you understand where this is all coming from, or you're not going to be able to do what you need to do in the end. Okay? Now, you've been trained and programmed, so you know what to do regarding everything. You ask anybody, how do you do this? When you pay your taxes, oh, you got to get a driver's license when you're 16. Oh, this. Everybody knows the same things. It's one of the first things I wrote on my website. But we've lived a life as a beggar with licenses for everything. Yeah, everything. You need a license to be a lawyer. You need a license to be a doctor, a plumber, an electrician. You need a license to drive a vehicle. You need a permit or a license to build a deck on the back of your house, or a fence. You need a license, and you can only have 1 dog. No, you can have 2 dogs, the town says. And you can have 8 chickens. Right? I want to get married. Well, you need a license. And you see, there's the one obvious one. And that's why they say, if you're not married, the law will treat you as common law married. Listen to what I said. It will treat you as if you're married. But you're not married, not in person, not according to the state. But who wants to get permission to marry somebody else? So that becomes a little obvious. And there's a few things like that, right? So, and of course we have no idea what it means or feels like to own property. Yeah, we walk around, you can't do that, you can't do that, don't touch that, stand over there, get behind the line. We have no idea. We act like beggars our whole life. And it starts in school, line up, put up your hand if you want to ask something. I mean, you have no idea how much of a beggar we are. And God comes right out and tells us that we're in bondage and we're beggars. And that's not the way He created the world or what man's supposed to be able to do. So, anyways. You were told you owned that, but then you were told what you can do with it, or how many you can have, or you're forbidden, etc. And I wrote here, we really are dumb people. I'm telling you, when that lawyer told me years ago, I don't own anything, do you think it just clicked like, oh, I know that? No, it took like 3 years before I started to grasp that concept. Okay? So, you think you can just go from being an eyas to a passage bird? Impossible. It's not possible. You have to jump onto branches first and then back into the nest. Then you got to go from one tree back to another tree. Then into the wind for a short flight and so forth. Then fly around and chase things all day back into the nest and be fed by your parents still. Yeah, you become dependents. You think just children are dependent. So every adult's a dependent on the government, on the state, on lawgiver, right? You can only go on your own as you learn all these things. You think you can just learn a bunch of new things to completely retrain or deprogram your mind. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It will take time. Lose your vanity, humble yourself, realize what you are, know your limitations. We're going to go through those things. I'm going to teach you things and show you things that you just never even thought of before. And I want you to relax and have faith, and it will happen. And the harder you try, the more you'll go around in circles. Because what are you doing? You're using what you already know, what you think. How do I solve a problem? Right? Oh, you got it. It must have something to do with this, it must have something to do with that and everything else. It isn't until you get the fundamental basics that all of a sudden you'll go, that's irrelevant, that's irrelevant, that's irrelevant. It becomes a lot simpler than you would think. I'll give you another example of what can be done to your mind. If I've got a pair of peregrine falcons, they lay 3 or 4 eggs, babies hatch out, parents feed them in a chamber. Over here I've got a pair of gyrfalcons. Now they're about the same size bird, one's a little bit bigger, but they feed the same way and so forth. So if I take a baby peregrine falcon and get rid of the baby gyrfalcons, just put one baby peregrine falcon under the gyrfalcon. So you got these 2 gyrfalcons now feeding this little baby peregrine falcon. And when you look at the chamber later, the gyrfalcons will be full grown, and 8 weeks later, the peregrine falcon's full grown. They don't attack it and say it's a peregrine falcon, but that little peregrine falcon, all he's ever seen and heard and been exposed to is these 2 gyrfalcons. It actually thinks it's a gyrfalcon. Now the pair of peregrine falcons, I put a baby gyrfalcon under them, and they raise it up. So now I've got these 2 black and white peregrine falcons and a much bigger young gyrfalcon, and they think it's their baby, and they don't know any difference. They don't look at it and go, that's a different species. When those falcons, when that young gyrfalcon and that young peregrine falcon are about 3-4 years old, sexually mature enough to breed, and I put them together in a chamber, if one's a male and one's a female, the peregrine falcon will breed naturally with the gyrfalcon. Because that peregrine falcon wants to breed with the gyrfalcon. It will not breed with another peregrine falcon. And that's called an imprint. That's a sexual orientation. So, believe me, you don't want to know what I know about homophobia and homosexuality and everything else and where it all comes from. But anyways, same with your dog and your pet. You think, oh, this dog's nice and he's got a problem behavior thing and he barks and he growls and he go and bite somebody and, you know, we got to get his behavior better and so forth, right? No. All these domesticated animals, you've had them from the time they're young. And as they grow, you've altered their mind. And now you think it's something like a human being or like a man. No. You've altered it. It's no longer a normal dog. It's an eyas. And you'll never ever change it. And that dog will never ever hate people and everything else. Go to a barn and see where a cat is, you know, had kittens in the hay bales, you know, back in the top of a hay mow. And when the kittens are about this big, they'll start to walk out, you know, and then they run back into where the nest was and the mother will go in and still feed them. Just leave them in the top of the barn. Wait till they're about half grown, not even full grown, about half grown. And you see one coming out, walking around, run over and grab it. It'll sink its teeth right into your fingers. It'll bite you. It'll never become tame. It's like putting your hand in a hole and grabbing a wild squirrel or a raccoon or whatever. It's not a nice pet. It doesn't come around purring and rubbing up against you. And if you leave those cats in there for another few weeks until they're basically full grown, that cat will be wild forever. Oh, you can tame it to a certain extent, but you'll never change what's here. So that's where the word pet comes from. It comes from the word petulant. Yeah, to pet, which means wanting, demanding, needy, peevish. A petulant child. Mommy, give me this. Mommy, I want that. Same way as a baby bird or an animal cries to its parents for its needs and its wants. That's a petulant being. And that's where the word pet comes from. So, an eyas is a pet, isn't it? Because we've altered its brain. But the passage bird and the haggard bird, oh no, they'll never be pets. So, and you see all these scientists and PhDs in universities studying animal behavior, etc. And I look at the stuff that they're working on and I go, I really know the answer to all this stuff. They're just silly people that decide to go to university and they like animals, and the world's become demented on stuff. But anyways, so now let's compare this to you and me. What you like, what you love, what you believe, what you think has all been put into you by those around you and your environment. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do about it. So, the time of your mental development is past. You cannot undo it. You'll never undo it. You'll never become an eyas. You'll never become a passage or whatever you are. The best you can do is get control of it. And that is how we transform our mind. You see, you were supposed to be raised up in the way a child should go. And when he's old, he will not depart from it. You were to be told that this is your mother and your father is the authority in the family and owns all the property in the family and rules over the children. Yeah, and the father's duty is for the time a child is weaned from the breast to start to teach them the rules of law. And every 7 years, the whole congregation, the public, have to have the law read to everybody so everybody knows the rules and the law. But that's not what happened to us. No, instead we take the law, the book of the law, and we think it's some, feel good, God loves me, Jesus died for me, I can do whatever the hell I want, and when I die I'm going to heaven as long as I'm forgiven, or whatever they think, right? So, that's how we transform our mind. We get control of it, but you'll never get rid of it, sorry. So finally, be aware of what you're up against and accept it. This is the first step and the reason for this first Transform program. As you can see and grasp these concepts, you will be able to hold on to them. That you'll be able to do. Some you will think you have, but they're not in focus yet. You'll relapse. But when you do see them, right, things will become easier and the frustration of your mind will start to recede. I'm telling you, that's what I went through. So now we can begin to go through some concepts which you're not supposed to know. Either you're not supposed to know, or you never even thought of before, or are completely foreign to the way we think. So, in the next program, we'll learn the most fundamental truth ever to cross your mind. Now, till then, my name is Marcus.